head cold, which is like always what happens when the season changes, right? And so I'm sound terrible and I feel a little bit better than that. But I've said today I get to mostly listen to you guys talk, so that makes me feel like I can handle this. So I'm going to drop in the chat the link to the peer review document. I noticed many of you are already in this document. Um, and I'll just share my screen real quick. Um, so this is really kind of not a heavy lift. It's more of an opportunity just to for all of us to give one another some props for the hard work that you guys have done on these different garden visits and like explorations of the design elements and principles. So if you log into that shared doc and you can see on my screen here um, that you'll just write in 3 questions like aha moments, wonderments, curiosities that come up for you as you listen to the presentation, something that you found really interesting. Um, Not 3 per person, just 3 per group. And you can just look through, find your name. Um, and I look forward to kind of seeing what you all are thinking. And then also you can review what other people had to say to you. So, in the interest of time, we're going to go pretty quickly through tonight so that we can make sure we have enough time to hear everyone's presentations. Before I get started on sharing the presentations, are there any questions about expectations for the next 2.5 hours, or what happens next?
So just reiterating what you just said is open the Google Docs for that page there. And as we're listening, we're supposed to be typing things in there.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So in the past, I've had this where you've done it sort of on your own in the background, and then I just like go through and compile them and then share them out. But it just felt like it was making like extra copying and pasting, and that
Okay.
I don't think anyone's writing things that would need to be censored. You know, it's just so this is an opportunity for you to just give feedback in real time, and then you'll.
How are we supposed to watch what someone's showing us and type something at this in another screen at the same time?
Well, if that is problematic for you, you could just take notes separately and then type them back in. I have like 3 screens going here, so I'm always like have multiple things happening, but you can just take notes on a notepad and then type them in after. It doesn't have to be done like by the end of class or anything, if that
Okay,
is easier. Does that work?
sure.
Okay.
As we're doing our presentations, like, will we just tell you like next slide type of thing?
That can be up to the group. So if you would rather have a group member be the person who's moving it, I can have you share your screen, or you can just tell me next slide. I'm fine either
Okay.
way.
Do that.
Lindsay, you have your hand.
Quick question. I see the document, but you said we're supposed to find our name?
Um,
Enter your name.
Enter your name. Yeah, enter your name. Hmm.
And I'm sorry, I also have a cold, so my brain's not working. So I'm seeing like I see group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so many times. Which one do we?
So just go to one, like see here at the bottom, Lindsay, where it says your name and
Uh-huh.
there isn't a name. You can just put your name there. And if there's not enough names left, you can just grab them like
Oh,
this
okay.
and
Okay. I'm so
copy.
sorry, but that's very
No
helpful.
worries. No, I'm with you here. I'll type it in for you right here, Lindsay. Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
whoever, um, whoever's S that was, you can go to the next. There you go. So, um, no, no worries. Thank you. I hope that that's clear now. Okay. I know Daniel said he could not be here tonight, so he shared with me. I'm gonna stop share a second. A recording. Is his group knows that I'm there? We're gonna be pausing and sharing his recording.
We
You
did
guys
not
are
know
all.
that, but that's great. Should I put his all in? I had them in order. Should I just put his at the end maybe?
Mm, I don't know. Do you want to talk about it? Like
You you
how
could
to?
just do it at the end of group 4.
Okay.
Oh, is it Daniel Petr? Which
I
Daniel?
think it's the other one because
Okay,
I'm
okay.
here now. I'm in our group.
Okay, great. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. Daniel Locke. Yeah. Okay. I don't think he's in group. You're group 3, right, Amanda? No.
Group
We're group 2,
two.
sorry.
Group 2. Yeah, group 2. Yeah. Okay, so no, not Daniel Petrick, Daniel Locke. Yep. Okay, so whose group is Daniel Locke?
He's in group 4
4. Okay, so yeah,
with Diane, Christy, Michael,
okay.
and Sylvia.
And are you comfortable with me just doing that at the end of that group then, Diane?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Okay, so we're gonna just go in order to keep everybody like going right along on their documents. So I'm gonna would group 1 rather share their own screen or rather have me share their screen? This is Mackenzie, Jocelyn, Carissa, Gwen, and Christine.
I'm fine if you share your screen.
Okay.
I didn't realize this would be the very first person, but
Oh,
exciting.
it's going to be great. Everyone this is really informal. I'm excited to see what you guys have to share. Everyone is like super supporting your work here. So thanks for being the first to go. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing and just remind me to push it forward. Remember that I do have a head cold, so I'm a little can you drop the link to the document? Yes. I am also a little bit woozy, but there we go. Okay, so group 1, Elements of Design. And I'm going to go ahead and make it full screen. You all can see this okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mute and we're going to be off.
Do I change the slide or you change it?
I can change it
Oh,
when
okay.
you're ready. Yeah,
All
just wanted
right.
to make sure you're ready.
Yeah, this is our presentation. These were the principles of design that we were touching on today: balance, emphasis, movement, pattern and repetition, rhythm, proportion, variety, and unity. Here, the next slide. I believe my picture's first. Okay, so for my project or my proportion of this presentation, I work at Longwood, and this is an area of my garden behind the DuPont house. And the element is value. As you can see, the sun is shining through on the bricks, and there's some strong contrast there. And the principle that I chose was movement. So I have the pathway in this photo leads from the DuPont house to a unique collection of historic trees known as Pierce's Park. It uses the principle of movement to draw visitors through the space. It encourages movement and entices guests to meander under the trees to enjoy the unique understory of the historic LA. And then I said we can see how the curving lines of the path, as well as the lines in the brick, create a sense of action, making us want to move to and explore what is around the corner. And I said, even though it is constructed of brick, the design itself feels fluid because of the curving lines. It's more feminine, and it leads our gaze into new directions. So I just thought this was a really good example of how a hardscape really acts as kind of a path to lead us to new places and encourages movement. Next slide. The next one, this is the front of the house. The element is shape that I did for the previous one. And then the principle that I chose was balance and repetition, specifically focusing on the windows of the house. So I have the distribution and arrangement of windows on the face of the Pierce DuPont house at Longwood create a balance. A uniform design, the repetition of windows encourages the eyes to drift across the plane of the building. They're all similar in their size and shape, making it feel like a rhythmic composition. Even the chimneys exist on both sides of the home, making it a perfect mirrored image on each side. So yeah, I just felt like it was completely balanced home. The windows were completely, even though there's an odd number, they're arranged in a way that it's completely mirrors itself and was a good example of balance and repetition. So I only did two, so I think Jocelyn is next.
Yep. So I also work at Longwood, and my area of the gardens that I take care of, or at least one of them, is the rose arbor. So I chose this image of the rose arbor blooming to represent line and then also pattern and repetition. The rose arbor goes around this big area as a big circle shape. It's a little more like an egg shape, honestly, but you can pretend it's a circle. And I said that the structure itself creates a repeating architectural rhythm through evenly spaced arches that guide the visitors around this circle. And the roses are climbing roses, and so each pillar has a rose that goes up and over, and it repeats the entire way around. And then I said this repetition helps unify the space and makes it feel cohesive and intentional. And the consistent spacing of the plants and that curved line of the structure leads the eye forward and creates a sense of movement through the garden. And then next slide. So this is my summer display from last year. And so for this image, I chose to represent form and value as well as emphasis. And so I do this really large container display right in the center of that circle with the roses going all the way around. And this is like the centerpiece of the space, which is the form, as well as the emphasis, I guess. But yeah, and then also I chose to represent some value here because the way the sun comes through the taxodium trees, like in the background, creates like these beautiful like pockets of sunshine, and you see the contrast with the shadows. You can even see like some of the plants in the containers are backlit, showing some really dramatic color. And yeah, that's it.
For my project, I went to a local elementary school playground. I definitely didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was. Just seeing other people's designs and things they pointed out, it seemed theirs seems a lot easier than this was, but I was able to do it, which was great. So this picture here is one of the ones I chose for the elements of design, and this one specifically was color. As you can see, there's different colors there. It draws your eye just with bright pops of color. And I just said that the rocks on this artificial wall each have different colors and forms, creating variety for children to climb on. So the principle I chose for this one was variety. And as you can see, some of the rocks have like a little bit like some of them have a flatter top and some of them have like a little bit of a nub shaped top. And like what I realized from that is that each rock is different in size and shape, making the experience of climbing more interesting. So some of the rocks that have the knobs at the top are more for grabbing onto, whereas some of the ones that are flatter at the top are easier for your foot to latch onto. So I just, yeah, was able to notice that variety in that little space. You can go to the next slide. And then this one, this picture is what I chose for shape. As you can see, there's lots and lots of circles, and then I also outlined the triangles. And in the playground, all of those triangles come together and they form an hexagon. So the principle I chose for this one was pattern slash repetition, but then also balance. Yeah, like I said, the angle of the image doesn't show it well because at the time I didn't know what the principles were and I didn't go back to it. But if I would have been zoomed out farther, you would have been able to see the hexagon and that it kind of brings symmetry, which I feel like I can like see the balance in it. And then all of those little circles there, they form like a triangle-like shape, and then those triangles form the hexagon. So everything just like kind of works together. And obviously you can see so many circles and the triangles. So there's lots of pattern and repetition here, which is fun. Can you go to the next slide?
All right. So I live in Northeast Philadelphia, and I chose the Morris Arboretum's Rose Garden as the garden that I would walk through. Because of all the snow covering, most of the pictures I chose were just sourced from online. But they're still gorgeous, and it makes me very excited to see them in just a couple months when they look like this in reality. So my first example, I wanted to highlight the use of line and shape to support balance. And this is a Victoria era rose garden, which is very, very characteristically symmetrical. And this would be a common layout using a lot of geometric shapes and a garden that has a lot of rooms, but is essentially laid out on a flat plane. So this you can see very, very clearly from above here how, there's just insets of various geometric shapes that are symmetrical, that create a sense of balance throughout the entire garden as you navigate. And you can get a sense of what room you're in, but you also have at all times a sense of where you are within the garden. So as I described below, it's kind of like the bones of the line and shape for the garden. All right, and moving on to the next slide. I love this, just the impact of entry that this threshold has. And so I used it as, the element of space, but creating just a sense of emphasis and this magnitude of I am entering this space and it is significant. And it's almost irresistible. Like I can't help but want to move forward through that threshold. And I think it was pretty brilliant for them to use such a imposing or intimidating, tall, thick, dark metal structure against the softer and more flowing material inside. But it doesn't shoo you away; it actually draws you in further. So, and otherwise, like I said before, a very flat plane. You have this just real sense of space and a sense of an outside and an inside and a pull through. All right, and moving on to my third slide. We have a picture here is just a small snapshot of a section of the garden where you have a variety of many different forms represented here. And that gets at the principles of variety, but yet a sense of unity. So here in this garden, you have a mix of built structures that help define the space and create focal points that encourage someone to maybe linger or to move through a space or to otherwise gather or reflect. But then throughout it, you also have a just flowing masses of plant material that don't just feel like generalized masses. They have definition, they have different heights and textures that all flow together with a sense of beauty without anything being lost in between. So, and together, all the various forms, all the various plant materials, they together combine to form this unified sense of the garden. Yeah, so if you haven't been there and you're ever in the Philadelphia area, you should go. It's a gorgeous garden. And that is my piece.
All right. So I live in Northwest Ohio and I visited the Cleveland Botanical Garden last fall. So I used my photos from that. And for my first slide, I chose the element of form and the principle of balance. This garden has repeating circular shapes and they're all arranged in like a very symmetrical manner. And then you've got the benches on each side of the walkway, which provide balance. And then I noticed like the trees in the background are sort of like tall, short, almost looking like a wave all the way across, which provides balance. And then I even noticed that the clouds that I captured at the time that I took the photo are even provide like a evenly balanced visual weight to the photo. So this just all these different shapes come together to make forms, and then there's just a lot of balance in this photo. And go to the next slide. This was one of my favorite parts of this garden. Just a really pretty octagon shaped pool. So I used the element of shape and the principles. I actually found several principles in this photo, which were movement, rhythm, and variety. And I just noticed how the ripples of the water on the surface of the pool sort of like mimic that shape. I mean, it's more circular, but kind of mimics an octagon shape in a way. And then you can almost imagine them like moving towards the outer rim of the pool. Like I can almost see that they're like moving, and um, there's they seem to be very much like evenly spaced apart from each other. So like a patterned recurrence or rhythm. And then just the variety of trees and shrubs planted around the pool depict different sizes, colors, and textures, which create just a really neat visual interest. Next slide. And then this final picture is, I thought it was interesting because it's all like very monotone. So I used the element of space and the principle of unity. So in the foreground on the lower right side of the photo, you have just rocks and small shrubs that depict positive space. And then just to the left of that, just an open lawn area that gives the eye a place to rest, which represents some negative space. And then everything in the background sort of creates this like wall-like definition that just kind of brings everything together. And I thought just the simplicity of the plants being all different shades of green just create this visual unity within the garden. That's my presentation.
All right, great job, group one. Let's give a bunch of props. This was really well done. I have a few minor comments for each of you. First of all, really great work. I know this was a challenge this time of year, especially with the snow-covered landscapes that you were asked to go look at. I'm gonna move this here so I can feel like I'm looking at you. So I appreciate that you rose to the challenge and went about it in different ways. That was really cool. Um, I'll start with Christine and then go backwards. Christine, can you remind me the name of this garden again? It's the Ohio Botanic Garden.
It's the Cleveland Botanical Garden.
Cleveland Botanic Garden. Okay, it's really beautiful. And I think you were absolutely right that like your photos and like did a lot to reinforce the different design elements and principles that you were picking up. Particularly in that first one with, I'll just go back to it. Just sort of this repetition of these kind of like wave like lines that even were there in the clouds. It was really beautiful, and lots of things going on with the forms, the combo of the orthogonal forms with the more curvilinear forms were really beautiful, as well as the textures of the different plant material contrasted with these more clipped hedges. We saw that again here. I like how you talked about the redundancy of this sort of radial form that went from circle to octagon, and then I saw it back again in here in the shrubs as a circle. And then I wanted to just note that here I definitely see space and unity, but also what provides a lot of interest is the varying textures in this image of like the smooth lawn parterre type grass with the clipped hedges against the more kind of rough evergreens and other things, as well as the stone. So really nice photos here. I think you really captured these different elements and principles together.
Thank you.
Gwen, this was awesome. The Morris Rose Garden is really very incredible, and seeing these like very vibrant colors this time of year is exciting. I was particularly struck by the idea of form, and we can think about form in terms of, as we know, plants have forms. There's climbing roses, there's shrub roses, there's tea roses, and they all have sort of different forms. But then you sort of contrasted this with the forms of the architectural elements in the garden. And so as garden designers, we think a lot about what are these structures that we're placing in the garden. And in this case, we have, the the fence in the background, these topiary forms that the climbing roses can grow up, as well as the form of the bench. And I thought that was intentional or not, like really well done. And even seeing these sort of spiky, I'm not sure what the plant is, maybe a crocosmia or something like that, in amongst, or an iris, I don't know, in amongst the roses, to really talk about the variety that we can find in plant material forms and how that can be contrasted with the variety we see in the architectural or structural forms in the garden. The other thing that really struck me about the way you were talking about the Morris Arboretum, when you talked about threshold here, um, that made me want to remind everyone to review that Catherine D book that was one of the recommended readings that talks about the different design morphologies of like foci, threshold, um, space, path, and there's a few others, but that are like design morphologies, and this idea of threshold being a really important thing. Like if we can design our gardens to think about the threshold or our outside spaces, as like we move between one design space and another, it can be really a strong organizing factor. Um, so well done there, and just reminded me to put a plug in for that reading. Um, and then Carissa, I thought you were very strategic in going to see the playground equipment. And what your presentation reminded me of was that in addition to these ideas of what is like design elements and principles, we also have to think about the function of design. And so while you're maybe this didn't look as glamorous to us as maybe the roses, like the bright, vibrant roses against one another, being able to identify that there is a design strategy within the development of these playground equipments and like how things come together was really great. So thanks for going, giving this a good shot in the middle of winter. Um, Jocelyn, this picture was just amazing with like the beautiful sunlight streaming through those taxodium, and I really love the way that the form is um, really defined by the value changes that you see behind it, and definitely picking up on the emphasis of these highlighted leaves in your uh, photograph here. And Mackenzie, thanks for kicking us off. I know that's always a tough place to be the first one. On this image in particular, I really love the way you were talking about it. And you even said the word feminine, which I thought was really interesting. I think both you and Jocelyn talked a little bit about like the sort of gentleness or softness of these curvilinear lines as compared to more orthogonal or sharp edges. And I found that quite astute, and it reminds me of here at UD we have the north side of the green was the men's area of the college, and the south side of the green was the women's area of the college. And on the north side we have we have an alley of what were elms, and they were replaced with Zelkova at one point, and now they're putting in Dutch elm disease resistant elms. But on the south side of the green, they planted honey locusts, which, as you know, are these, more wispy trees that are known to provide dappled sunlight. And so Marion Coffin, who was the landscape architect in charge of the design, said that they were more feminine trees. So I just thought that was an interesting way to describe this path. But thanks again, Group 1, for kicking us off. I think you did a great job. And yeah, great work. We're going to go ahead and move to Group 2. Anyone joining us or have any questions? Okay, and Group 2, do you want me to share or do you want to share your screen?
I think it's fine if you share.
Okay.
Thanks.
Whoops. The wrong button, slideshow. All right, I'm going to mute myself and you guys take it away.
I think that Addie, you're first.
Yeah. I think this is just the summary of the spaces that we covered. And you can go to the next slide. So the first one that I did was balance. I was doing Mount Cuba Center, which is in Delaware, not too far from Longwood Gardens. And one of the things I really liked about this particular photo displaying the balance is that you can see how like different lines and different shapes created the same massings on both sides of the photo, but they're actually made out of different elements. One is a pathway, whereas the other one's a stream. One is a bench, whereas the other one is a bush. So I thought that was really neat. You're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Um, I did another one on balance, and mine is in a garden in Granada, Spain called Carmen de los Mártires. Um, I really love the balance of this space. It's also just really big and really dramatic. But you have this kind of really large fountain at the center of the space, and it's then surrounded by another circle with kind of paths that radiate out from it. And I love the balance that's kind of created from like the drama of the really tall trees, and then the low shrubs, and even how you just kind of have the formal hedges around the kind of little green spaces, and then it's more wild and kind of verdant inside of the clipped hedges. Um, yeah, I really just love the balance of this space. You can go to the next slide.
8 or something. I don't know.
So this is back in Mount Cuba Center. And this one I felt showed emphasis. So you can see there's a sculpture in the middle, which is an example of form elements. And it really is the tallest point in that entire area. And you can see it from multiple different vantage points. This is kind of the best point where you can see the whole thing. But from other angles, you can't necessarily see the whole thing, but you can see what is that over there, and it kind of leads you over, which is neat. Next slide. And then this one shows movement. So of course there are shapes here, there are lines, but I think it's really the shapes and the lines that draw you in and create that movement, because it really feels like it's pulling you down that path into that circle area where you have the fountain. And of course you have the movement of the water with the fountain. But just because you have like the different slopes going with those brick pathways, it really creates a sense of movement. Next slide.
I find that this place, obviously it's a very somber place. It's a cemetery. It's in France, and the idea of actually, your eye going to this kind of undistinguishable center gives a sense of movement that really makes you want to walk there. The French really like their allées, and as you can see on each side, you can walk to that mausoleum, but you don't. It almost serves you better if you're standing on the lawn to see this center point. So it really does make you think about the space and the time that you're in and the time it takes to get there. Even though it's as I said, a very sad place, it's quite beautiful in showing movement and the passage of time. I think I'm ready. Yeah. This one was it's kind of fun, and I love the way the texture of the plants and the lines of I guess it's I'm not sure what it's called where the plants go through it, but it gives a sense of pattern, obviously, because you have the pattern of the shape of the metal, and then you've got the plants growing through it. I also think that this suggests movement as well because it's an open space. You want to walk through it, and I think it gives you a sense of calm and just calm, just going through it because you don't really. I mean, from this photograph, you can't see what's at the end of it, but it's quite beautiful. But I love the repetition of the little squares and the plants going through them. Next slide.
Uh, so I used some older photos from Longwood, and I really like this one. I like how the rope over top of all the flowers gives the nice pattern, and they're not exactly all the same. So it just gives like a different pattern than what I feel like you're used to seeing, especially at Longwood. And I like how it when the flowers come up and bloom and whatnot, the it helps give the flowers a pattern as well with the yellow, orange, yellow, orange. I know you can't really see it well in here. They're not all up yet, but I think gives a really cool picture, especially when you can see the whole thing. And then on the right side, you can see the bamboo trellises. That also gives a nice little pattern and repetition. I know they go a little bit farther back, and I think they have a couple more. But yeah, I really liked uh, this one, how it gives all those patterns and repetition from the bamboo trellises. Next one, I think.
Mute. Rhythm. I was really stuck with this one. I wasn't really quite sure how I was going to interpret this. After I looked at it a lot, I mean, I love the image itself. I love the different colors of the stones. I think that's really interesting. But I really do think it provides a rhythm. And I mean, it almost reminds me of like a drum beat that's not necessarily in rhythm, but it portrays rhythm. So you're walking across this little brook, which, of course, provides a sense of movement. And at the end of this walkway, this stone walkway, you can see a very smooth path, which implies more movement and maybe a less staccato rhythm. So the rhythm is smoother in the end, kind of choppy in the beginning. Um, that's how I interpret that. Next slide.
This is also from Longwood. This isn't one of my pictures. I couldn't find any of these. I thought I had a bunch, but I really like this, how it shows the water shows movement and rhythm. Just like Bonnie had said, it feels like a drum beat as the water, they're all different. None of them are coming up at the same time. So it's like one, then another, then another. And I like how it just like flows and the movement with it. I know there's a couple more in the conservatory as well. But these have always been my favorite when I was a kid, and these have always just stuck with me every time I think about Longwood. Um, but yeah, I really like how it creates um, a sense of movement, even though they're not all the same. They're all different in its own way, and the water spouts are all coming up at a different time. It's just really cool and fun to look at and watch when you're in person at Longwood and not just in the picture. This is also Longwood from the Meadows. I've also always loved this section in Longwood, but this photo even kind of shocked me a little bit when I found it, is how big the meadow and Longwood actually is. It really gives you, like, you can see a person down there and the bridge. It just goes to show you the big open space and how much space and all the acres at Longwood. I thought this was a really good um example of proportion. It's not quite like a statue or any major plant or anything, but it just shows it's just a little person down here and then a little bridge and then just a big open field and open space, which is just really cool to me. Next slide.
Ready? Oh, yeah. There we go. This is I absolutely love this place. It's in Potomac, Maryland. It's a museum, a privately owned museum, and obviously, this is big thing in front of in a big meadow. But when you actually see this sculpture, which is 37 feet high, and it's plants, they're live plants, and they're being irrigated. Um, so it's just fascinating. But when you walk up to it, you really don't have a sense of how large it is until you walk the path around it and you can see it from the other side of the meadow. And it just perfectly, I think, illustrates proportion. We've got, this large thing. We've got, the wide open spaces, and really it gives you a sense of scale that's obvious. Next slide.
For variety, we're back in Carmen de los Martires. I think the garden as a whole is a really good example of variety because there are so many different eras and different feels throughout the design, or throughout the garden. So you'll be in kind of the entry of the garden and you'll find yourself in this really formal space with this kind of colonial mansion, which I don't have pictured actually, and then depending on which way you go, you will find yourself in like a really shady, like deep wooded area, which is kind of pictured on the top left. And then you'll be in like a area with herbs and like would have been their vegetable garden a long time ago. And then that will take you through other formal garden spaces with fountains and neoclassical sculptures. And then you kind of have to navigate your way through to find these little paths that feel kind of like a secret, and they'll take you up to the higher ridges of the garden, and you'll have all these kind of dry garden plants and then these sweeping views. So you can be in this garden that's relatively small, and then have different experiences in, a matter of 30 minutes. So it's a really cool space that I love so much. Um, and we can go to the next slide. And then also Unity, um, because the history of the garden starts in like the year probably 700, and it's gone through so many different um, cultures and rulers and uses. And so the garden, if you're really paying attention, it can feel kind of like it doesn't make sense. Um, because it could feel fragmented, but what I find to be the unifying force throughout the garden is really the water. Water in this, and then I think it creates unity for the garden, but also it gives it like a sense of place where it's located. It's a really dry, arid place for many months of the year. And so water has always been really important, and they've always had to be really ingenious with how they harness and store water. And so you'll see water used throughout so many different ways in the garden and ponds and these ancient aqueducts that still work. And I think I think that's it. It really comes together really nicely. And I think
Awesome.
that's our last slide. Yeah.
Nice job, group two. Wow, that was a really cool kind of around the world exploration of lots of different gardens. You guys did a wonderful job. Um, this garden in Granada, Amanda, is fabulous. That is like I love that city. I've been there
Me
one
too.
time, and I told my husband like I would move here. Like I just loved it so
Yeah.
much. It's really beautiful, but I think you did a great job, and I love the contrast of like the unity and the variety in the same garden, and how we can really see how that can work. Like, and that those two things can be like there together at the same time. So it's not like you have to pick one or the other. You can make something cohesive but also have variety by using like elements that provide that cohesion, but still giving people different experiences. And so really cool there. This is an awesome photo. Bonnie, I can tell that you also are a great photographer from these images. And I just love the contrast of this very like naturalistic wild meadow with these beautiful seed pods and things. It's very Pete Rudolph, but then with this like very, formulated creature in the background that is just like, kind of like this Godzilla of the meadow that's coming to get us. But it was very cool, not only with proportion, but I could also see like emphasis and a lot of other design elements and principles, but really fun. Daniel, you spoke really clearly about like the way that you saw proportion in this image, and absolutely like especially seeing the people in this, like you really can get a sense of the scale of the space of the meadow. And I think there's also similarly something to be said for like emphasis in this one as well. This is a very great landscape to see, and especially to see it as it changes over the seasons. One of the things I loved about this slide, Daniel, and this one, Bonnie, that were both about rhythm, is that in both cases, these examples incorporate water and also require a little bit of engagement, or could require engagement of the user. So in this one, I know that you can like put your hand on one of the water nozzles, and then like it'll force water to come up higher out of the next one. So there, it sort of invites an engagement from the user with it. My daughter like loves to play on those, and she's when she was little, especially now she's a little older, but likewise this one, like the cadence as you move through, and kind of it's not just the every 8 inches we're going to take a step, or every 12 inches we're going to take a step, that there's sort of a varied rhythm. It sort of engages the human body in a way, and that seems really important to me with all of the elements and principles, that it's not just like something that's laid out in front of you, but that there's like an engagement with how you interact with it. So I love those two as kind of a pair. This was really cool, and it brought to mind the same kind of functionality that we saw in the first presentation with the playground. Like this is something that's made out of need so that we can make sure that these marigolds are staying upright, but it also creates this like really beautiful fabric for them to kind of grow through. And the contrast with the bamboo in a different form was very cool. And this trellis archway, the French do this like nobody else, right? There, it is so beautiful. And it really is that contrast of the very formal square form with the wildness of the vegetation growing through. And again, Bonnie, your photo skills are just like, I don't even know what exactly is happening with this light shining through here, but it is pretty amazing. And definitely we see that pattern and repetition. But even more so than that, I just like the value in this too, with the light, dappled light along here, and even the repetition of some of the forms, like the square of this drain in the ground, and this probably manhole cover with the circle here, and then it's like a really incredible photo. So very lovely. And even the details, like seeing these little graffiti on here is cool. And this also incredible photo. I love the use of the alley as sort of like echoing these lines of memorial headstones, or I don't know what you call them, memorial headpieces. This was a very like, you can get a sense of the monumentality and the gravity of this place, and also the way that I'm not sure if it's like the repetition of the trees or the headstones, or this door in the distance that's like drawing you through it, but you definitely got a sense of movement. Um, Addie, I love Mount Cuba so much, and these are really like dear to my heart. More Marion Coffin Gardens, I love her, and definitely get a sense of the movement. I know that they recently had to do some renovations to make sure that these were graded to be ADA accessible, which is really quite cool. And as we think about how we change gardens for functionality, to make sure that they're meeting current user needs. But there's certainly a lot of different like ways of movement in this, both like going towards it, moving around it, and the play of the water in within it. Um, this Samara sculpture is always really cool, and it also does move in the wind. It's a kinetic sculpture, so that's very cool. Um, yeah, we talked about the garden in Granada, and I like the way that you utilize the line to talk about the balance of these forms and shapes here. I'm excited to see these puppies blooming again soon. So great job. Thanks, group two. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? We're at 6:54, and then we'll come back at 7 and we'll do the next 3 groups. So 5 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for taking a quick break. I'm going to go ahead and share group threes unless group three would like to share their own screen.
No, you can share it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and you all can take it away.
Okay. Here are the elements and principles of group three. Here you can just see all the different places that we covered. Next slide. And here you can see the three that we chose, which were emphasis, movement, and rhythm. Next slide. That's me. This is just kind of like a brief description of the garden that I chose. It's Malcolm Meadows Coffee Farm and Botanical Garden, and it's on the Big Island of Hawaii. I've been there multiple times. It's kind of like a nostalgic place for me. My sister lives in Hawaii, so that's kind of why I've been there so often. But it's a coffee farm and a tropical botanical garden. You start at the top of a hill, it's on a mountain, and you kind of follow the path down. And it starts off with a bunch of gardens, all kinds of tropical plants. And then in the middle portion of the path, there's this orchard that opens up, and they encourage you, whatever is in season, you can pick to eat, which is cool. Definitely have gotten to experience like, lemons, limes, all kinds of tropical fruit, macadamia nuts, that kind of thing. And then you kind of finish your walk down the hill, and at the bottom, there's an infinity pool that looks out over the coast, like the horizon line, and then they'll like prepare the fruit for you that you picked. So it's very like a very sensory experience. Next slide. All right, the design principle that I chose here is showing movement. I said the principle of movement is shown by the movement of your eyes being drawn to the ocean, like between the palms. The elements of line contribute to this movement from the lines of the palm trees, like the trunks of them, as well as the horizon line and the infinity pool edge. You can kind of see, if you look at the infinity pool, you can see the very edge of that, and then right where the arrow is, where it's a little bit darker, is where the horizon line is of the ocean. And I also kind of highlighted the element of space that's created from the two masses of the palm trees on either side when you kind of, like, this is what you would get to experience under the pergola when you're enjoying your fruit at the very bottom of the garden. So yeah, it's just a cool like ending point. Next slide. And like I said, it's the whole experience is just very sensory. And rhythm as a design principle, you had said that it was more of like a sensory type principle. And I just have different pictures here of the orchard. You can see the macadamia nuts, some fruit there, and then to the left there's like a coffee plant. And let's see. Because they encourage you to walk through the orchard, that whole space, and encourage you to pick and eat the fruit, and makes it like very sensory. The element of space also contributes to rhythm here, as you can feel the ocean and smell the coffee plant flowers, which are super fragrant when they're blooming. Next slide. And then here's the design principle emphasis. You can see all the pictures of the vibrant colors, tropical flowers. The element of color contributes to emphasis by showing the vibrant hues and a lot of saturation in the pictures. And then the element of texture and shape also contribute to emphasis with the varying textures and shapes of floral plants kind of placed around each other.
Next slide.
Okay. I'm going to be sharing with you the elements and principles of design as they come to life in the gardens of Lotus Land in Montecito, California. Next slide. Lotus Land was originally purchased by Madame Garnawalska in the early 1940s. It started as a nursery for tropical plants in the 1800s, like well before she bought it, and evolved into a collector's paradise of rare species and plant research. It's not just beautiful, it's a living canvas where design principles create immersive experiences. The garden's about 37 acres. And it's located in Montecito, which is up in the hills behind Santa Barbara in California. And you can't just visit the garden, you have to make an appointment. They have a limited use permit, so you can buy tickets and go see it. But they're only allowed a certain number of people per year because of where they're located and the vehicle traffic and things like that. All right, next slide. Here I want to talk about line, shape, and form and how they drive movement. Movement in landscape design guides both the eye and the body, creating anticipation and flow. Looking at this array of lemon trees, the straight pathway bordered by hedges and the arching lemon branches uses strong horizontal and vertical lines to direct your vision toward the focal planter at the end. It's like a visual arrow pulling you forward, while the arbor acts as a barrier and an enclosure, intensifying the sense of progression. Behind you, a bench invites pause, but the lines push onward, and this creates a physical and visual movement, building excitement for what might be ahead. Next slide. Similarly, in the Leptospermum arbor, the curving branches form an enclosed tunnel, shaping a sense of shelter that opens into sunlight. The path transitions from shade to light, enhancing movement as you emerge to mosaic benches and a fountain. And it's a journey from enclosure to openness. Next slide. Now we have a more casual path in the olive alley. No rigid hedges, but the gnarled old olive trees form natural lines with stairs and a mysterious door beckoning ahead. The irregular shapes of the trunks add organic form, guiding you intuitively without the constraint of any clipped hedges, yet clearly directing your movement. Next slide. In the formal rose garden, lines are much more precise. Brick pathways, clipped hedges, and citrus in pots create symmetry and balance. Your eye is drawn through to a Moorish fountain and rill, then to a landscape clock with succulent plantings and whimsical topiaries. Although whimsical, everything is laid out in a really precise and balanced manner, pulling you all the way through and moving you along. The hedges enclose and direct using line and form to maintain order and pull the focus forward. Next slide. This is the Moorish fountain and the succulent clock that are further down that rose garden. You hit the fountain first, and then the succulent clock is all the way at the end. So you can see here movement isn't always linear. Circular forms like the star-shaped fountain and circular clock, their rounded shapes create rotational movement, inviting you to circle and explore, emphasizing balance in the design. Next slide. Here we move to color, shape, and texture for emphasis and balance. Emphasis highlights key features while balance ensures harmony. In the abalone pool, there's an intentional lack of bold flower color most of the year. The aloes add a small pop of red seasonally, but the turquoise water becomes the focal point. The kidney-shaped pool, abalone shells, clam shells, and plant forms create textural harmony. Next slide. Shapes balance each other. The curving pool ties to the rounded shells and spiky plants, while the red brick echoes the aloes. The lack of color emphasizes form and texture, achieving asymmetrical balance through careful placement. Close-ups show this emphasis. The abalone shell's iridescent texture draws the eye, balancing the smooth water. Giant clamshells add whimsy, their shapes contrasting the foliage for visual interest. Next slide. The main house's pink color serves as a contrasting backdrop, like a painter's canvas. It emphasizes the unusual forms of the cacti. Their twists, spikes, and textures shine against it, creating emphasis through color, contrast, and highlight of form. Next slide. Finally, color and shape tie into emphasis, rhythm, pattern, repetition, and unity. Mass plantings, which are widely used throughout the garden, in this here using the barrel cactus grouping, repeated round shapes fill space without overwhelm, creating rhythm through pattern and repetition. The massing draws the eye, offsetting the house's verticality for unity. Its cohesive, bold, and pleasing rhythm in the undulating forms, pattern in the repetition, all unified. Next slide. More massed cacti show variety in shape but unity in color and form, enhancing the aesthetic appeal. Next slide. In the path to the Japanese garden, the stone lanterns line the way, each unique in shape and size, yet their repetition creates rhythm and pattern. The linear placement guides movement, emphasizing the transition. They build anticipation, unifying the experience as you enter. Next slide. In conclusion, Lotus Land masterfully weaves these elements and principles to create not just gardens, but stories, from guiding paths that evoke movement to balanced, emphatic displays of texture and form. It's a testament to thoughtful design, whether through repetition for unity or color for emphasis, every corner invites wonder.
Hi, everyone. The site I visited was the Pittsburgh Botanic Gardens in Oakdale, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Pittsburgh. And when I went, they had a theme, and the theme was love interwoven. And it was just like they were comparing gardening and the weaving of textiles. So they had different textiles, art pieces throughout the garden. Next slide. In the first slide, I did rhythm, and I chose this art piece that was just in a pathway from one garden to the next. And the artist, you can see the back of the art piece, it's just the willow branches woven, but then on the other side, you can see that they use like yarn. And I chose the elements of line because of the vertical lines throughout the piece, the color of the actual yarn, and then the texture of the yarn itself. I thought all represented rhythm well. Next slide. This slide is done on the principal emphasis, and this was a children's garden, and there was so much more of the children's garden. It was really beautiful. But this one, I just chose this picture I took because of the art piece in the center. That I think the elements that represented emphasis in the picture are color and form. So the form is the piece itself was constructed out of garden implements. So you can see the wheelbarrows, the garden shovel, and then the tires around it that draw your eye to it. And then the color actually makes it pop out in the garden itself. And then the last slide, you can, next slide. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's not advancing. Maybe it's something on.
I think Anna might be frozen.
Yeah. She mentioned some technical issues earlier. Perhaps that's it.
Just give her a minute.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
See?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but I turned my to see if that conserved some energy, and I'm sharing my screen again. I could hear you all, um, and I was advancing it. Can you see my screen, that
Not
movement
No.
slide now? Okay, give me a second. Let's see here. Can you all see the movement slide now? No, still not seeing.
Here,
It
it
says
should,
participants.
it looks like it's coming. There it is.
Okay.
And then the last slide that I did was, or actually, this is the second last, is movement. And this was, can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Sorry, now it says it's loading. I was just trying to make it full screen, but give it 1 second. Here it
I think
goes. Can you all see it?
this was a path that led
Can you
to,
see it now?
yes, this was a path that led to two different gardens. And along the path, they had mailboxes, and the mailboxes were in front of trees. And inside each the mailboxes were to keep you on the right path to either garden. Like you could choose one line of mailboxes for one garden or the other. And inside of each mailbox was a laminated sheet, looked like a newspaper sheet. And on each, it told you a little bit about the tree it was in front of. So it told you the year that it sprouted. It told you the common and scientific name of the tree. Like this one here was a white oak, and then it would show a picture of it. You can see above it the tree and like full flush of leaves. And then it gave you interesting fun facts on it about the other things that were happening in that year too. So like this white oak sprouted in 1891, and then just the first fun fact says Stanford University opens its doors. So it just tells you, it gives you a little bit to draw you in and move you physically through the space to one or the other garden. And then the last slide that I did was just kind of an extra slide that I threw in there to show a little bit. This was one of the artists, and these pieces were actually inside. Actually, the heart was outside in one of the gardens, but the other two pieces, they were inside in the area that you like paid for, and they had a little shop. But either the artists that participated in this theme, or there was also students. They had some student work in there because they have some classrooms and things. So I just showed two pieces of artwork that I thought were really pretty there. And that's the end of mine.
All right. So I'm going to talk about Seattle's Olympic Sculpture Park. It's a multifunctional space that serves as a public event and gathering space, outdoor sculpture park, and most importantly, a pedestrian corridor that connects downtown Seattle to the waterfront. The park is on top of this frenetic industry between active railroads and streets, yet it feels calm and restorative. And that's why I picked it to try to explore the design that's powering that feeling. Next slide. So line is a base element found everywhere in the design. I was kind of blown away, actually. It was everywhere. It was in, it was pointing direction, navigating visitors. It was in the materials. It was in reflections. It was in shadows cast. It was in borrowed views. And really, line is one of those base principles that I'll talk about in the coming slides that powers movement, rhythm, and emphasis. So go next slide. So at the heart of the design is a Z-shaped path that traverses the park. The slope of the path is deliberately set to a meditative pace. The paths on slopes are made of gravel, which introduces this acoustic texture that's designed to decelerate your movement further. And the short posts, and these I became fascinated with throughout the park, flank all the pathways and read as these thick upright lines that establish a rhythm, regulate stride, and the pace of the visitor. Okay, you can do the next slide. And so each of the switchbacks on the Z path orients the visitors both physically, but also their gaze towards a specific view of either the Olympic Mountains, Mount Rainier, Elliott Bay, artwork. So the views are very choreographed, and the views are emphasized through orientation and layered other mechanisms. So go to the next slide. And so the bold color, the color palette of the landscape is primarily cool greens and blues and grays that are contrasted with the primary colored modern sculptures, creating emphasis. But one of the things I thought was really cool are there's these long flanking forms that are everywhere throughout the park that seem to underscore the view and really keep your focus on the view versus the designed landscape. And you could see that in the photo there. So, just to close, it's interesting because it's a pretty minimal, on the surface, it feels like a very minimal design, but when you really evaluate it, you start to appreciate how thoughtful and restraint, thoughtful and how many layers are there, and also how much restraint is in the design. So that's me. And I think that's our whole group.
All right, great. Thank you, group 3. That was really great. Sorry for the technical issues in the center there. I'm hoping that that's the end of that, but some really cool projects again, going far-reaching across the United States. I appreciate Marianne, what you just said about like the restrained nature of this design, but how complicated it actually is. I was not there. I was in Seattle, but not like actually in this park, but I saw it from a distance. And one of the things I find interesting about it is that it does negotiate, like as you can see, especially in this image, a lot of different things, like some grade negotiations and some different types of circulation. So while it does seem simplistic, it also is quite complex in like what it has to get around in the terrains. And you use some words like choreography and acoustic when you were talking about the materiality that I thought were really um, interesting and helped inform the way you experience this site. Um, One of the things that stuck out to me in all 3 or all 4 of the presentations this in this group was this combination of I'll go to Kimberly's to touch on this, but the combo of the structures in the garden and how they were encouraging people, whether through that like tactile nature of the sound that they made, or like, oh, I want to go read about this in this mailbox, like the actual utility of them, of how they informed the experience, and how that had to do with the design. Carrie, I see now why you you said in Bonnie's presentation that you would call the trellis an arbor, because you had so many cool arbors in yours, and you are probably right. I would maybe call it an arbor as well, maybe a trellised arbor, going back to Bonnie's in Paris. But these were fantastic photos, and it's clear that you have a really descriptive, creative way of writing and speaking about these spaces. This photograph in particular almost looked like one of those historic tinted slides that you can see, like the plate glass slides. The colors in it were just so fantastic, but it really did get at that kind of contrast between the textures of this very smooth, like um, glassy aqua pool, and then these wild textures of these different shells and plant materials. Um, the other thing, this group was so fun that you gave us a little bit of info and history, or sort of deeper understanding of each of the gardens. So I really felt like we got even more enticed to want to go visit them. I definitely could see how this experience of moving through these different orchards in Hawaii would give you that sensory experience. So thank you for sharing that as well. And I think that this is a really good example of the way that these infinity pools can work to extend our eye, draw our eye out to the horizon, and then keep it going. So that was really fun to get a sense of each of your personalities through these presentations, and just some really awesome photos too. Were these eucalyptus trees? What kind of trees were these, Carrie?
They're olive
Olive trees.
trees.
Oh, olive
Yeah,
trees. Okay. I
yeah,
think you said that. I was like, they're so incredible. Really beautiful. They create their own arbor, don't they? Like a
they really do.
yeah.
And I know you had said you're going to LA in September, and if you're planning on going a bit north, it's definitely worth the trip and getting a ticket in advance.
Yes, I think I'm gonna try to make it happen. We'll see if I can skip up there. It's not that much. Not that close, but maybe we'll see. Um, all right. Well, thank you, group 3. We're gonna keep going to group 4, um, which I have downloaded to my computer. Oops. Trying to make this one appear on the right screen. Okay. All right. So group 2, and then I do have Daniel's downloaded his MP4, so I can play that at the end once you're um, done presenting. So just let me know when you want me to start advancing slides.
I think mine is first, so if you could advance to the next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I live in Northeast PA. Everything is snow covered, so, or at least it was at the time of this assignment. So I dug into my camera roll to get some photos. And this one is from Disneyland, excuse me, Disney World in Florida. And I wanted to focus on variety in this particular picture. Variety helps make this design interesting. It includes differences like variety in shape, color, texture. The biggest thing that stands out in this image is the large white teacup planter. And the teacup has a very smooth, rounded shape, which contrasts with the more natural and irregular shapes of the surrounding plants. And then the shape of the tea bag being rectangular, and then the different shape of the information sign. Like there's just a variety of shapes in this picture. There's also a big variety of color, the bright red flowers and the white teacup, the greenery, the yellow tea bag, adding again to the variety. And then there's a variety in textures. Again, that smooth teacup, the variety of the bush, excuse me, the texture of the bushes, the texture of the building in the back. It just feels to me like in this particular picture, there's a lot of different varieties of different elements. Next slide, please. And in this picture, I wanted to focus on the movement, which is seen in the cattails in the front. And the cattails have really strong vertical lines, which naturally draws your eye upward. And then the pond sort of draws your eye into the background of the landscape, and then the trees drawing your eye up. So it just feels like there's movement as you're looking at that picture. And the cattails give the sense that although the picture is still, that they would sway if there was some wind. And then the branches in the front of the picture, the ice-covered branches sort of being pulled to the ground, there's some movement there as well. And I feel like also in the background, the rounded shape of the edge of the pond, there's just movement there, you know, it just kind of draws your eye across the picture, across the landscape. Next slide, please. And here is emphasis with the cairn being right there in the middle. The stacked rock cairn is the focal point of this particular natural landscape. And the reason it stands out is because of the vertical line as well as the texture, the rough surface of the rocks contrasting with the softer feel of the greenery in the background. And the form and structure of the cairn is also noticeable, with the rocks being stacked vertically, which makes the shape feel different from the flatter ground and the scattered flatter rocks around it. And also here, I feel another element is space. There's the open sky and around the cairn, which helps to isolate it, making it even more of a focus for your eye. And that's me.
All right, so my turn. All right, so all of my pictures are at Longwood. And in this one I wanted to emphasize emphasis as the principle. And I think that the shape of obviously the rectangular hedges, but also the shape of the background trees going all the way around the garden draws the eye into the fountains to actually cause the emphasis there, as well as the white fountains with the aqua colored, I guess you'd call that a base, again, bringing more emphasis to the fountains. And anyway, that's what I love this picture, actually. Okay, so this one, I want to highlight movement. This is an alley just off the, I guess you call it the visitor center, the entrance. So there's many lines in this picture. You obviously have the lines on the pathway going down. You have the line of the evergreen hedges. You have the line of the aqua urns. You even have the line of the little lanterns, all of which is drawing the eye down to the bottom of all the way through the alley. So, and I think also the color of the urns has a lot to do with causing movement in this picture. So, okay. Oh, sorry. Next slide. And then this one I was highlighting pattern and recognition. Um, the I think the element value is highlighted because you've got the white snow because of the colors, the contrasting colors, you could say. You've got the white snow, the gray, but then dark edge of the water, and then the trees and the, obviously the dark branches there. But then you've got also the walls that kind of complement the snow. So as well as the pattern, the recognition, it obviously is the glass walls, but I think also the trees. There's four trees there. They create a pattern there, as well as I'm not sure what it is, but it's basically those little, it's almost like a very low, sort of like a little fence right next to the water. So that's that's it. Next slide. Yeah, now it's Michael.
Hello. I went to Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. There were no wildflowers, but I was still able to complete the assignment. So this first one is this fence. So I did line along with movement and rhythm. Line is pretty self-explanatory with um, the vertical posts and then the also the horizontal. What I really liked about it, sort of because it was somewhat irregular, it just feels kind of laid back. It feels very Texas. It's not taking itself too seriously. If you wanted to break through the fence, you probably could, but it just gives you a sense like your eye sort of moves to the right. Um, yeah, it's kind of a that's it. Next slide, please. Shape, unity, and balance. So shape, we had these like steel circular planters, and there are three of them, so it really sort of emphasizes that circular shape. Pretty, they're quite balanced with the two smaller ones in the foreground in front of the larger one, but there's also additional balance with the walkways and sort of this like formal-ish Texas style with the limestone. So it feels very balanced as well. Next photo, please. Color, emphasis, and contrast. Interesting that I chose emphasis because it's well, what's emphasized is this Texas sage, but it's still very not super bright, but I think against the limestone and the blue sky, just having that little bit of the green um pops a little bit along, in front of the blue sky. And I think yes, that's it. Thank you.
I think that these are
Daniel's.
Daniel's slide. If you can
Okay.
skip over this one and the next two.
Okay. Is this you?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I chose to illustrate the principles and elements with some photos from Kylemore Abbey, which is in the west coast of Ireland. I'm sad to say that I did not visit it over the last few weeks. It certainly would not have been in bloom like this. But I thought that a number of the style of the garden really, I thought, lent itself well to illustrating some of the concepts here. And so here I was illustrating pattern and repetition. And I think that, the shapes that they've chosen for those beds on the far slope, especially those horseshoes on the center of the far slope, and you can see at the top of the slope, there are again some more circular, arched beds. And then at the bottom, there are beds that are sort of an S shape and repeating across the bottom there of the far slope, just alongside the pathway. All of that I felt provided, I mean, it's obviously repetitive, but it also, provides a clear pattern that brings together this really large space. And I think it's complemented by the repetition of the plantings on each corner, which are very similar in the shape and the color of the plantings there in each corner. Next slide. To illustrate movement, I chose this one partly for the texture and the value, the play of the shadow and the light. These are actually like I think some type of lily. Up close it looks kind of like a toad lily, but I couldn't tell you exactly what the plant is. But it has these sort of like grassy leaves, and then these really vibrant orange, small but vibrant orange flowers. And so the color at the top and the the leaf structure that's kind of grassy, and again you can imagine that swaying in the breeze, and then the play of the light and the dark really made this feel like a vibrant little corner, whereas I think any kind of a lot of other plantings might have just made it look rather dark and maybe a little bit dull with all of the surrounding foliage. Next slide. And then I'm a huge fan of border plantings. I'm always trying to improve my own, so I always notice what other people have in theirs. And I like this one, which I think illustrates both unity and variety. It has, with the boxwood hedge along the back, it's really clearly defined. It's a really sharp hedge. It's, really sharply trimmed. And then you have a variety of different textures. You can see there are some like long and, grassy textures. There are some flowers that are sort of drooping, and then there are some like smaller along the front, the smaller like rounded leaves and denser planting. And then down at the, toward the other end on the kind of upper right corner is a little bit more of like a floatier texture, a little bit more cloud-like with the white flowers on top. And so I thought that it really did a nice job of showcasing how to use a variety of different colors, textures, and plant styles, but keeping it unified, again, with that sharp hedge and the consistent planting across the front there, and then more of the variety in the middle that helped keep it from looking like just a hodgepodge of we threw down a bunch of seeds and this is what happened, which I think happens to a lot of people. And I think that's it for our group.
Okay, great. I'm gonna also share Daniel's, but I did want to just note, Tanya said, look at that, Virginia. It does not do well here like that. And it's definitely looking very robust in this image. So I'm going to play Daniel's, and then I'll give some comments. So. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Can you all hear that?
No, there's no sound.
Okay.
I think you have to hit something to make the sound work with a video, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
Yeah, I think it's
It's in your Zoom controls under more. You have
under
to share
more.
sound separately. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I knew it was somewhere over there. All right. I'm going to start this over. Here we go.
Hey guys, I'm Daniel. I'm doing my presentation on video since I will not be attending today's class. So let's jump right in. This is my first image. This is a photo that I took at Longwood. It's of the West Exhibition walkway in the main conservatory. And I said that color and texture tie into unity, proportion, and balance in this kind of landscape shot. And so over here in the text, I said that color and texture stand out to me the most in this photo. The uniform, excuse me, the uniform smooth texture and style of the man-made conservatory create a neutral background to help guide the eyes towards the colorful plantings. The balanced proportions of the colors and textures create an intriguing feel to the space. This is a great example of unity, proportion, and balance created from contrasting colors and textures in the landscape. Right, so as you can see that we have the very bland, smooth textures of the conservatory, and that kind of highlights these kind of rough, chaotic, colorful textures of the plantings. And you can also see that there's also a balance in the shaping of kind of the planting. You have your triangle over here, you have your square, you have a square down here, you got a triangle up here, right? So there's balance in there, there's equal proportion in this kind of snapshot right here looking down this hallway. So that kind of creates that visual appeal, that visual interest that we want to see when we walk through a garden. And so for my second image, this was at the Philadelphia Flower Show just the other week. I went with my girlfriend. It was absolutely wonderful. I totally recommend people to go. But I said that space and form tie into rhythm and emphasis in the snapshot. So for my text bubble, I said that the warm bedding of daffodils contrasting against the dimly lit room creates a visual focus around the arrangements and specimen trees. The varying forms of the trees and flower bouquets ignites interest within the landscape, and the mirrored plantings create a spacious feel from a small display. And so as we can see from the daffodils down there against that dark lit room, kind of highlights the flowers or trees in the middle, and then that kind of rounded, very puffy look from the flowers against that rough, kind of jagged, bent over look of the trees creates a bit of a contrast there, and so that creates a little interest. We want to know what's going on there. Why are there such different kind of contrasting textures happening? So it creates an interest in that kind of landscape. And then we also have the mirrored landscape right behind that first set of plantings. So we have the first two flowers with the tree, and then behind it we have more flowers with another tree. That kind of creates that depth, and so it creates more of a spacious feel rather than just having it all flat against this one kind of bed. Alright, and so for my third image, this was also at the flower show. This one was absolutely amazing. Just this meteor kind of shooting through space type of display. And for this one I said that line and shape play a big role into movement, proportion, and variety. And those all kind of work together in this landscape. For my text bubble, I said, beautifully arranged, value, line, and shape all work together to perfectly express how movement, proportion, and variety tell a story in a display. The shaping of the floor helps create a fiery movement through the display. The neutral lines that are equally spaced create an equal proportion across the multiple connecting arrangements that allow for movement to flow seamlessly. The varying shapes of the arrangements highlights the changing variety of plants used for those displays. And so, yeah, it just creates this perfect kind of fiery, meteor look that is just obvious even from far away. And this one was amazing. But I'm hitting my 5-minute time limit. So thank you for listening, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. So those were very cool to see the images from the Philadelphia Flower Show. I did not make it up there this year, but did anyone make it up?
Yes, I went.
You did. Did you
Hmm.
enjoy it?
Yes, it was, they separated the marketplace from the show itself this year. So
Okay.
it was less overwhelming and for a gardener, more interesting to just focus on their displays and not get involved with the vendors trying to sell stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Before I came to UD, I worked at PHS and did several flower shows, and it definitely could be overwhelming in that space. But there's a lot of cool things to see. My
Yeah, the other
students,
great thing was that just the how many native plants were represented. It's every
mm,
year, it's more and more and more. And this year, almost in every um, display, there was a prevalence of native plants.
oh, that's wonderful to hear. Great, great. Yeah, I wish I could have made it up. I did not, but I heard good things. My students got a silver medal. We're always
Oh,
in
nice.
we're always in competition with Temple. And this year they beat us, but that's okay. I like Temple too. But great work, Group 4. Thank you. And just some really interesting gardens. Again, I think really highlighting the way that these design elements and principles can be defined by the architectural and structural forms of the garden, but also by the plant material itself and by the forms that the plants take. I think you can tell that this is a group of people who really love plants, the way all of you talk about them and highlight the way you sort of feel about them in spaces. I also, Michael, liked the way you were like, this feels very Texas or very informal, or I could break this wall down. But I mean, that's part of what makes it interesting and gives it that kind of like the kinetic movement is that it does seem like it could, if you like sort of pulled one of these sticks out, it could collapse or something. It makes it really interesting. Um, Likewise, Diane, I appreciated the way you were talking about the pattern and repetition not only being in the structural pieces with this small, you said a small fence. I don't know what you would call it, just sort of this like um, rail. This is protective rail, which I did hear actually was problematic from one of the gardeners at Longwood. They said that some people were tripping over it, the small rails and things. But also in the repetition, the way that these trees were preserved and like their forms created this repetition. That was very cool. Um, this emphasis, Sylvia, you mentioned the space and kind of the textures around it. I also thought the value and how the light was hitting these stones, this cairn, really emphasized like its verticality and its precariousness, like the fact that it's stacked. So I thought that was cool. And I loved the ice in this photo. um, and it was interesting. It was kind of like made me smile to think, oh, we're talking about movement, but we're also talking about something that's like frozen, right? Like you don't necessarily think about movement and ice, but like there's actually something that does sort of, because ice melts, right? And it changes, like it does give you that sort of sense of movement. So well done, Group 4. Thank you. I think I touched on everyone's. These are really great to see. So we have one more group left to go. Everyone hanging in there? Yep, okay.
Anna, I uploaded a PDF file for ours. I hope that's okay.
It is absolutely fine,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm just making it full screen here. If I can. Nope, that's not the right share. They use share in so many different ways. I think I just do my Control L. That's how I do it. When in doubt, Control L makes it full screen. Okay,
That worked.
I'm gonna go ahead and make mute myself, and you guys can take it away.
Sure. I think I'm first, so I can get started. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so after everyone put their slides together, we definitely started to see three examples emerge, movement, emphasis, and unity. So we can go to the next slide, please. Or scroll. So I have a garden twin, Gwen, also did Morris Arboretum in Pennsylvania. I live about 20 minutes away in East Falls in Philadelphia. And I have a membership to this garden. We go all the time, but I actually haven't been too often in the winter. So this was kind of fun to go in very late February with snow on the ground. This first image, I think, shows a lot of elements and principles, elements of line and form and space that align with the design principles of emphasis and movement. The line formed by the stream directs your eye to the cabin at its end. It also kind of creates a division between the foreground and the background. And then the flowing water contributes to a sense of movement. And then I also felt like the vertical lines of the trees sort of gave emphasis to the cabin in the center. Next slide, please. So another example of line with the stream, the walls on the side kind of lead your eye to the waterfall. And then I also felt the waterfall at the far end is balanced by the large moss-covered stone in the foreground. This arrangement creates a sense of unity, presenting two visually engaging forms at either end of the view. Next slide. In this image, the shapes of the trees are mirrored in the water, and that kind of mirroring gives unity to both the sky and the water below. Next slide. I saw a lot of really cool shadows while I was in Mars visiting. The shadows kind of lend to lines and movement and rhythms, and they also kind of create structures of their own. The shadows create the structures, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Next slide, please. And then finally, these massive trees really show a good example of shape and proportion. They just create such a distinct space. The vertical trunks create rhythm and movement, and I love that they just draw your eye up and down. They make you feel small, and they're just such a large form that just really grabs your attention. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, my computer is doing funny things. I just included this photo. It's from a Parisian street. And so I thought it was a good example of how texture and color here of the ivy create movement and emphasis for the door and the courtyard entrance. And this is just for fun. Next slide, please. So the park that I visited was the Washington's Crossing Park that's located part in New Jersey and part in Pennsylvania with the Delaware River in between. And the river itself and the streams and the paths that mimic them in the woodland of the park all contribute to the element of line, supporting the principles of pattern, repetition, movement, and unity. The flow of water down these various channels brings movement quite literally and invites the visitor to explore the park, venturing down its paths, always with the view and the sound of water just off in the distance. That repetition creates a sense of unity in the vast 500 acres of the preserve. And the next slide, please. Here, it was really interesting to visit purposefully in the winter and to see how the elements of color and texture contributed to the principles of unity, movement, and variety. The evergreen American hollies in the third slide and the rhododendrons that are sprinkled throughout the park and along the stream draw attention in the winter, and you probably don't even notice them in the summer because everything else is green as well. Um, and kind of bring a sense of unity and help the visitor move through the landscape in the off season. And a similar effect is created by marcescence of the young beech trees that don't drop their leaves until later in the spring. Their golden papery leaves flicker and rattle in the winter breeze, adding to a sense of movement and variety in the woodland and provide a sense of unity with the evergreen foliage while the other trees are bare. And the next slide, please. So my slides got switched. This is going to be in Illinois, and then we'll go back to Washington's Crossing. But I included this slide of the Giuseppe Pannone sculpture on the campus of the University of Chicago because I thought that it was a good example of some of the elements and principles that we're talking about. So this was a sculpture that originally stood in a small town in Italy and then was moved to Chicago. And it's an example of the elements of form, shape, and value contributing to the principles of emphasis and balance. The naturalistic form of the sculpture balances out the stark brutalist style of the Booth School of Business behind it. It is emphasized in the design by that stark contrast. The metal and stone materials used in the sculpture are similar to the materials used for the building behind it, but its natural shape and form is completely different from the angular modern style of the building. The turf and the straight lines of the mowing pattern serve as a horizontal foreground, mirroring the building in its line pattern. At the same time, the fresh green color of the grass highlights the natural form of the tree. The tree is often mistaken for a real one. The granite stones nestled in the tree's branches are oval and reminiscent of eggs of some giant prehistoric bird. Their form is curvy and natural, adding to the value of naturalistic design and balancing the size and presence of the tree with the building behind it. Modern and prehistoric is another point of balance here. Interestingly, the stones were found by the artist in the river near his hometown in Italy and are the only non-man-made element of the design. The green turf could be construed as both stark and fertile depending on the mood of the visitor. It is the only colorful presence that, together with the overcast sky, provides a balanced canvas for this design. Every form of the sculpture is in conversation with its surroundings and is meant to spur a unique reaction in the visitor. And the next slide, please. And here, this is back in Washington's Crossing. And here the element of shape, in this instance, supports the principle of emphasis. The spring house is the only building in the woodland built right by the bridge over a creek. Originally, the spring house was a part of the farm operation and served as cold storage for milk. Now it is a historic marker contributing to the educational function of the park. The man-made structures of the bridge and the spring house are further emphasized by the sign that explains their history, original function, and cultural significance. And the last photo on the right is a summertime photo of the woodland floor covered in native Christmas fern. And it brings to mind the element of texture contributing to the principle of rhythm and movement. The woods are filled with varying habitats, and reoccurring fern colonies help create a rhythm on land to mirror the flow of water elsewhere in the park. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. So my part of the project was Commusile Megalith Park in Northampton County. And what I apologize for, but also take pride in, is I'm going for the gloomiest Pennsylvania winter photo of the group. So hopefully I'll get that award. Next slide, please. So what's really interesting about this park is it's made by basically like one or two people originally, but it's kind of morphed over the years. But the gentleman who founded it built these structures and everything stone, most of it found on the property. So it's pretty interesting. So what I want to talk about first in the next 3 slides is movement. So firstly, kind of talking about how the constrained space here creates movement. This is, you're on a wide path here, and then the path narrows to this almost like a turnstile type bridge, and you're down to a single path. And I feel like that really does a good example of like channeling people and like directing you because you don't have any options. You're first meandering on a path, then you're really heading straight toward this structure. Next slide, please. Next, shape as it pertains to movement. There's several gates in this park, and kind of like historically with the moon gate, I know it's almost like the idea is you're crossing a threshold. You're moving from one space to another space, and it almost really draws you in. So. For this example, we're really looking how that shape, you're noticing that you're going to go through that circle to the path ahead, just how that is really drawing you forward. Next slide. And this is my last movement example. And again, with like the undulating curvilinear path, almost mimics a stream in my mind and evokes the feeling of motion. So you feel, even though you're going uphill, not downhill, you really are drawn up the hill in practice. You have the little way markers at the side that kind of give a rhythm to it, but you're really climbing that hill toward the focal point and like following the line. So those are 3 things that I think are really well used to draw you through the paths in the park, which I think is pretty cool. Next slide, please. And this is what's at the top of the hill. So the person here just kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of the proportion, but it looks even bigger in real life. But such a cool example, I think, of emphasis just from the size and the proportion. Really makes you really stop in this area. There's a little bit of a clearing here in the forest. Just because it is like a crossroads. So there's a little bit of a bigger cleared area, but you really just kind of stop and like you can't help but take in the scenery around you before continuing on or deciding which of the paths that you're going to go to next. And it's kind of it's really neat because there is like an element of mystery to it. And just like the impactful nature of the sheer size really helps with that. Next slide, please. And lastly, and you kind of saw a few examples of the stones elsewhere in the park, but really there is a sense of unity because of the common materials. So there's that, but also the form. So that's one thing I wanted to hone in on here is that it's hard to see the structure on the right it's actually a fire pit. It's like a little bit of seating around it, but it's like a big fire pit. And the image in the structure in the foreground it's a bench for seating, like that your back is toward the middle and you people are like sit with their legs propelled out. So it's 2 kind of unique structures, but they are really brought together by those upright um, um, I'm blanking on the shape of the stone, but it's like what the Pentagon is. But just like that upright, pointy stone, and that because that's used, it really creates a unity among the different structures, just in what your eye is drawn to, and it's striking. It draws attention to it, so it stands out from the rocks that are in the natural landscape, and makes the whole place feel cohesive. And I believe that's it for me.
Hello, hello. I am was competing for the most dreary Pennsylvania picture, but I think you did win that one. So I did my project on Spruce Hill Bird Sanctuary, which is a tiny, basically a combined backyard space that is in Spruce Hill, which is a neighborhood in West Philadelphia. It's where I live. I was originally planning on going to Longwood, but then I looked at the weather and decided to stay local. Next slide, please. So the entrance to the bird sanctuary is this unmarked alleyway. I think it's funny we've talked a lot about alleys, but this is probably the first actual alley. And the principle here is movement. The element is line. I think almost self-explanatory here. It's not marked in any way as you're passing it. There's no sign that says, "Oh, there's a bird sanctuary back here." So you kind of have to know. And if it's your first time visiting, or if someone's bringing you there for the first time, there's this sense of like mystery and exploration as you're pulled down the alleyway. Next slide, please. Okay. So the emphasis of the bird sanctuary, which is it's a small space and it's hard to get a solid photo of the entire place, but it's meant to be an oasis in the middle of the city, both for the birds, which were unfortunately absent at this time, but also for people. Because, I mean, 2 blocks away from this is Walnut Street in West Philadelphia, which is basically a racetrack, and the hustle and bustle of a lot of the West Philadelphia neighborhoods. And once you come in here, you're completely secluded. It's very quiet. And if you sit for a while and allow yourself to be still, then eventually the wildlife will come back and you're able to observe birds in their natural habitat. And also, it encourages you to slow down and sort of reconnect with nature before heading back into the city. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the best all-around shot I get. So the principle here is unity, and the element is space. And here the unity is of that urban environment and that natural environment. So it's basically like a little parcel of woodland, um, enough to give you that sense again of like seclusion, and that seclusion is emphasized also by the literal wall of all the different buildings around you. And so in this way, it's kind of bringing together these two different spaces into one cohesive thing. I think that might be my last photo, so that's it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm next. My name's Adam. Before I get in, I have 3 pictures to share. Before I get into that, I'll just share a little bit about the where. So it's at the Denver Botanic Gardens, which I absolutely love. My fiance and I live about, I don't know, a couple hundred yards away from it. So we definitely go a lot. It's connected to a pretty sizable park as well that we're always walking around. So it's a pretty cool area. I'd say it's small. It's about 25 acres, so small for a botanic garden. But it really does, maybe similar to Alex, maybe similar to your alleyway. It feels mystical at times because you can get there from a bunch of different spots, and you kind of feel like you're stepping into this different world, and it's in the inner city, so it feels pretty cool. It's about 75 years old, and it was, I always find this interesting. I tell people it was built in the 50s, actually on a cemetery ground. They moved the cemetery elsewhere, but there's definitely stories of, is it haunted and things like that. So that's just a little bit about it. We go there a lot, have picnics there, take guests, go to concerts. So I'll dive into the first one. Shared this in class as well, but kind of got into the elements here. But definitely the walk of the walkway there, definitely feel that texture. And I think if I could zoom out a little bit and go back, there's a lot of patterns as well. You can see some of the rocks in there. You can see one in the shadow that's cracked, but there's a lot of intentional kind of patterns, and I think it adds to the rhythm of this space. You can also see the shape kind of in the background in that archway there. That just kind of adds to the overall kind of Japanese inspired pattern that they were going for. So really love that shot. I did love walking on it because you can kind of feel it under your toes there and under your shoes. So we can go to the next one, please. So this one definitely drawing on line and space, which I know has been hit heavily tonight with line, but I thought it did a great job too of just kind of having balance and proportion. You can obviously see the different planters that are empty since it's winter. The one right in front there is full, but the other ones kind of along the hedges are empty. But I thought everything here really just added a nice balance to the space, and I think it looks a lot bigger than it is. So I kind of credit kind of all the elements and the principles for doing that because it's not a huge space. And I will just add, really funny enough, when I was taking this picture, there was people at the far end that actually there was a proposal. So I thought that was pretty cool. I saw him on one knee, and I just happened to be standing on the other side taking a picture. So thought that was cool. You can go to the next one, please. This is the last one for me. That this wasn't during my latest visit. I wanted to get some color in there. This was from the summer. This is a grass area where we'll sit and picnic and just look at the fountain and the water. But I thought a lot of great stuff going on here. Obviously, the color, you have the value, you have the shape of the different beds. I really love the variety and the emphasis, variety, and you have kind of distinct water, you have grass, you have plant area that's kind of overflowing with, kind of seems like wildflowers kind of esque. It gives you that aesthetic, and I thought it just really showed a lot of different kind of elements and principles here. So I picked that one. That was in September, so a little bit ago. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, so it looks like it's my turn. I picked the tea garden in, I think it's in Philadelphia. I know this one's in New York. There's one in Philadelphia that I'm going to be going to in about 2 weeks, so I'm excited about that. Um, and this one here is in New York. There's the Japanese style theme going on here. I really like um, the pinks and all the different colors that are here along, as well as the textures and the different elements they used in this.
Sarah, are you there? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. There you are.
Okay. Okay.
There you go. I think you got stuck there for a minute. This photo here kind of, for me, brought out the color and balance in this area here. I liked the, purple bushes that kind of like draw your eye to the left there, but also the bridge that's in the middle that kind of draws you back to the right with the open space to the right. And then like the heavier trees and the foliar in the background, um, kind of takes you deeper back into the scene there. Next slide. This one here kind of is like shape and balance here. Um, I really like enjoyed all the most of the circular uh shrubs here that kind of draw your eye towards the middle and kind of make your eye go across the plane there. And I was also liked the different levels that the rocks show, and then the like the water up to the rocks, and you kind of, for me, I follow the waterfall there kind of backwards all the way up to that statue there. So I kind of like that and how it kind of balanced it out with the different shapes and then the different levels. Next slide. This one here, I did form and balance. Uh, the form in this view is kind of like the irregular rocks and the concrete and the plants. I kind of liked how my eye kind of goes to the focal point of that tree in the middle there that's kind of really bare, but it has these amazing like branches that are just spread and stretched in all different kind of directions. So I really liked that. And that kind of for me creates like a harmony and like, a serene spot for, kind of thinking and stuff. Next slide. This here, I like the lines in here, how your eye kind of follows the pebbles to the right and the curve of that, but also you kind of follow the koi that are kind of just, kissing the top of the water there and kind of take you underneath the bridge. And then once you get to the bridge, like your eye kind of goes across it to the rest of the scenery there into the back, and how the foliar in the back kind of just makes your eyes kind of swing around to the right side again. And so I kind of like that. And the next slide. This here was kind of the, texture and balance. Um, for me, it looks like there's every texture that you could possibly think of. The smoothness of the water kind of looks like a mirror and is, you know, reflecting the building in the background. There's, wood in different textures, the smoothness of the building, and then the roof is kind of, a little rougher. The rocks are in a nice line formation there. And I don't know. I guess that's it for that one there. Next slide. This space here kind of gives you like a more intimate, like garden space. Um, kind of like that it was, set between the two buildings, kind of making it an own personal, like oasis garden where you could just sit and be quiet and just enjoy nature. The balance comes from the two structures on each side, and then it opens up into the sky there. The next slide. This one here is, my value imbalance. I liked how, the sun shining down kind of makes a contrast on either side of the waterway there, where it's, light on one side and kind of, shadowy darkness on the other side. But the plants, are the same color, but they look different with the light there. And then the balance with that, you know, with the shrubs on either side of that waterway, and then the depth and contrast. And next slide, I don't know if I have any more after this, but
I think that's the last one, Sarah.
yeah,
Thank
I think
you.
that's it.
All right. Well, great job, group 5. Thank you. So Sarah, really interesting take on Shofuso. I liked how you were looking at balance as your primary principle of design, and how all of the different elements sort of informed it, or many of the different elements informed it. I think Shofuso is a really great place to explore that idea of balance. But it's also kind of an interesting choice because there's an element of sort of the kind of imperfection or asymmetry that's embedded in the Japanese garden design, where, there might be something that's like just slightly tweaked or changed, or a little bit off, because like there's that beauty in things that are worn or changed, like that kind of wabi sabi. um, that being said, I think that everything that you touched on really uh, hit home. And I hope you enjoy your visit in a few weeks. I'm taking my students there in a couple weeks too. It's great. These curvilinear lines that we see in the ponds. Someone mentioned, I think Adam, maybe you said, "Oh, we've seen a lot of line tonight." Well, of course, we have seen a lot of line in all these gardens. These type of lines, the sweeping lines that are the edges of ponds, remind me a lot of that kind of pastoral or naturalistic landscape quality that we saw in English garden designers like Capability Brown and Humphrey Repton, who were really exploring the idea of how to make uh, designed landscapes appear totally natural. So their whole kind of uh, modus operandi was like, let's make things that are totally human built look completely natural. And so they've really got into this idea of these serpentine curvilinear lines. And that was also done in the Japanese hill and pond garden style, which this is an example of, where they would excavate a certain amount of earth and then build it up to make hills on the outside. But we see so many lines in this image. It was really fun to kind of pick out how many different types of lines and how repetitive those forms could be. Um, that was really fun, Adam, that you caught somebody proposing in this Denver Botanic Garden. One of the things that stuck out about this group was that you guys fully embraced that, we're doing this in the middle of winter, and it's like this is truly what a garden can look like in the middle of winter, that there are a bunch of empty pots and yet it's still a designed space. And one of the things that struck me as many of you are presenting is this sense of like what we would call like vernacular landscape architecture and what is high design and what's a blend. So vernacular is sort of like the commonplace, the things that just are what we tend to see around us all the time. And then high design is what we kind of lift up as a great example of you know beautiful architecture that we want to try to bring home. And I love that we see both in these presentations. Clearly, the Denver Botanic Garden is trying and like doing a really nice job, as Adam said, this like use of these alley of arborvitae or whatever they are, definitely create that sense of space and distance. And there's like clear design moves being made here. Um, but we also have to recognize like the constraints that are given to us by nature, that certain things are only going to be available in the summer versus winter. In contrast, the Spruce Hill bird sanctuary uses a lot of really cool sort of almost, it looks like found materials. This reminds me of a garden I used to, when I lived in Philly, that used to be behind my house when I lived up in Chestnut Hill. And, these bricks look like they could have been reclaimed and like placed on edge. And yet it creates this really like important spot for a lot of people to go find solace, be able to commune with nature and hang out in the center of the city. And does have, just like those high design spaces like Morris Arboretum or the other places we've looked at, does incorporate those elements and principles of design. I think that it was just really neat to compare and contrast those. I hope I'm articulating that okay with my head cold. Um, and this place, where is it? In Pennsylvania.
It's pretty near the Delaware River, but it's I guess you'd say it's like the southern Poconos. So
Okay.
it's in
Okay.
Bangor, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
kind of just south of East Stroudsburg, I guess.
Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I will have to go check that place out. It's really fabulous. Do you know how they like did they use machinery to build it?
Yeah, they did. And there's actually I haven't watched it, but there's a gift shop with a little homemade DVD that kind of goes into that, and I think they have a book about it. But I kind of remember that they had machinery, like bulldozers and things. So it wasn't like hand done, but it's
Yeah,
like a small crew of people did it.
yeah. Well, it looks like a labor of love. It's really interesting, and I'm sure they weren't like trucking these stones like from hundreds of miles away like Stonehenge or something, but somebody probably had a lot of fun making this place. But it was very cool. I loved this image and how not only you had the movement that was like drawing you through this um, gate at the end of the pathway, but also the movement in these stone swales kind of along the sides and by the repetition of the stones along the edges, as well as these fallen limbs that kind of like echo it. It looks like these are or fallen trees rather. They look like they're trees as well along the edge here. So really cool. Um, and then Tanya, this one reminded me a lot of the vernacular architecture piece of like, this was not done intentionally as maybe a designed element, but there's beauty in like the placement of a spring house that is part of like the functionality of space and becomes part of the landscape that we experience. You can tell you're a plant lover because of um, just the way I've seen you respond to plants, but to also consider the temporality is really great here. And this was such a fun image to look at, and it brought up a lot for me, not only your very like expressive way of writing about it and talking about it, but also just this comparison of even this building to the right, which I'm not sure, it looks like from an architecturally older stylistic period, and like what is intentional and what's not intentional about the landscapes we experience. So you talked about the mowed lawn lines, and I wonder, was that something like very clearly determined by the person who's maintaining the space, that this is the direction that this lawn should be mown so that we'll get this certain experience, because it definitely contributes to the way that we view the sculpture and the relationship of the sculpture between the two buildings behind it. But how intentional or unintentional was that directive? And I think it just brings up an interesting question for us as people who, either experience, design, maintain landscapes, like how each choice can really inform what the overarching experience of a landscape is. It was very cool sculpture, and um, a lot going on in this picture. I love these photos of the woods in winter. I actually know this Washington's Crossings Park very well. Camped there when I was in high school and or near there, um, and loved to see the pictures at different times of year. Uh, and again, that whole idea of like what's vernacular, what's vernacular architecture, what's high architecture, and then what's sort of just like naturally occurring, and how each of these has their own sort of sense of design is something that we can continue to reflect on and explore as we continue to visit these designed and undesigned spaces. So it's 8:32. We're 2 minutes over, but I want to thank you all for giving great attention this evening. I know it's I'm going to see if I turn my thing on, if it's going to slow me down. My camera on. Um, oh, yeah, there I am. So thank you so much for giving all of your classmates your attention this evening and sharing your great experiences. It was really fun to see these different landscapes all over through your eyes and hear about them through your words. If you hadn't had a chance to complete the peer review form, please go back in and complete that. You can also, because this is recorded, go back and watch again if you feel like you missed something or if there's something else you want to say. I'm going to work on getting each of you individual comments by the end of next Monday evening. So about a week from today, you should expect your final comments. But I mean, I can say that you all did an incredible job. It was really fun to see these, and I enjoyed learning with you about how you're understanding the design elements and principles. So thank you so much. Are there any closing comments?
Yeah, and I want to say thank you very much. It's been a great class, and I really appreciate you being here when you're sick.
Oh, thank you. Well, couldn't miss this, Diane. Thank you. Hey, it's here with my kids. I mean, you guys are probably more relaxing, so So thanks everyone. I really appreciate that, Diane, and I hope to see you again another place. And we always tend to cross paths again. But best of luck and enjoy the spring coming.
Thank you.
And you'll hear from me
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank
Have a great
you.
day.
you.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.